Last week, there was among the many questions we received, and we did not, deal with it back then. But there was a listener who goes by the nickname Went Woos. He said, based on all the information you've gathered, what's your best guess at the Habs top 5 list? And it would be, and I think that you touched on it to a certain extent in one of your latest pieces for The Athletic with when you basically made a comparison between Demidov and Zeev Boyum, defenseman, who's going to be one of the probably one of the top 3 defensemen picked in that draft. We mentioned in a previous episode how there was not necessarily a likelihood, but there was a decent chance that if both Demidov and Lindstrom are gone, they could turn to a defenseman, but they could also choose to pass on Demidov altogether and go towards a defenseman. And if Lev Shunov's already taken the way that we expect him to be, the next thing in line would probably be Bouyem. So if we go Habs top 5,
or Salayev, frankly, I mean, if Salayev's there too, that would be a debate, I think.
Yeah. So what's your best guess at the Habs top 5 list?
In my
emphasis on the word guess, because that's okay.
Definitely a big guess, and I get asked this a lot as I run into people, who I haven't seen in a while. So, who are we drafting? Who are the Canadiens drafting? I really don't know. This is, in the last 3 years, this is definitely the hardest one to handicap. There's question marks with every guy, right?
Yeah.
If we take Levshunov out of the mix, even though I still think there's a chance Chicago goes with Demidov, they were in Florida en masse to meet with both Levshunov and Demidov. Levshunov for a second time, they obviously took him out to dinner in Buffalo at the Combine. Demidov for a first time, Scott Powers is again reporting that it is really down to those two. We'll see. We think that Levshunov is likely to be their pick. Anaheim and Columbus are both obviously wild cards. So if I had to guess, taking Celebrini out of the equation, I'm assuming that if Levshunov drops to 5, that he becomes an option for them. That they would probably maybe have to jump on that if that were the case.
For sure.
I think the Canadiens themselves are anticipating at least 2 defensemen to go in those top 4 picks. In which case, you assume that would be Levshunov and in all likelihood Salayev.
Mm-hmm.
So, of the rest, I would put Lindstrom at 1, Demidov at 2, William at 3. And after that, Beckett Seneca, I think, would be there.
Yeah.
And probably TJ Ginla. That would be, even though they obviously demonstrated some interest in Sam Dickinson, taking him out for dinner in Buffalo, Cole Eiserman, but we mentioned on the podcast earlier, that was in all likelihood a reflection of their desire to move up from number 26 and nab a pick in the teens. So that's my best guess. That's a total guess.
Yeah.
I have no idea what they're actually thinking, but that's my guess. Do you agree with that guess or not?
Pretty much. I would put, if you make you have to make a top 5 list based on how you would grade them. And even if you take off Celebrini of the equation, I won't necessarily assume that Salayev will necessarily be taken before. And even Levshunov. If I had to do a top 5 list, not counting Celebrini, I would probably go Lindstrom 1, Levshunov 2, Demidov 3, Bouyem 4, and I'm not even sure if there's a number 5.
I think Salayev, if Salayev's available, he's in that 5. I took Levshunov and Salayev out.
Yeah.
I think there's...
Yeah, you can put them in because it's not a guarantee that Salayev will be taken.
All right, I'll put them in. So I would agree Lindstrom at 1, even though there are, I think, legitimate questions about his back and his future after that injury. But I would put Lindstrom 1, probably Levshunov 2.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then Demidov 3, I would agree with you. And then I think it would probably go William Salayev for me. I mean,
Okay.
yeah. Salayev would be, and I think those are so interchangeable. Like it's honestly like Salayev is such a unique prospect, which is why I don't think he'll be available at 5. One of Anaheim or Columbus are likely to take him. Hell, even Chicago could take him for all we know. Honestly, like it's very possible. Like we don't see guys like that very often.
No.
But yeah, I think if one of Levshunov or Salayev are available at 5, the Canadiens have to do some real soul searching and really are going to have to, maybe bite the bullet in a sense. And Ken Hughes is going to have to come out and explain why they took a defenseman over the highly skilled winger for a second year in a row, and just do it. It's like but yeah, the variability, the wild card nature of this draft is going to make it for really fun viewing on Friday night. Going to be a really, really interesting draft leading up to the Canadiens pick. And it's not, for once, it's not the first time in this administration where the draft does not start with Montreal's pick. It starts much earlier than that. So they're going to have to read and react and sort of, call audibles if necessary.
Yeah. I think the two, Trevor Timmins once talked about the year that they drafted Cole Caulfield. He said that they had some helps, a plural
Yes.
helps, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and that which enabled them to draft Caulfield. I think that for all those fans who would like the Canadiens to draft a forward, whether it be Lindstrom or Demidov, I think that the two guys that could be helps for the Canadiens in that sense are Salayev, if he was picked in the top 4, and maybe there was an outside chance of maybe Beckett Seneca going at 4 with Columbus. That would not
which is where
so
Trevor
crazy.
Timmins is. No, it would not be so crazy. It's Trevor Timmins is not the head of scouting anymore, but he's pretty high up.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could see that happening. It's not outside the realm of possibility.
Yeah.
But it's really, especially with Don Waddell coming out and saying, the most difficult thing to acquire is goal scoring, and we need it, and this and that, and Seneca being, a similar late riser to Kotkaniemi in his draft year, which Trevor Timmins obviously took into great account. Similar frame to Kotkaniemi. But the hands and everything, like there's the late growth spurt aspect of Seneca, as we mentioned in last week's episode, I believe, it just makes him such a tantalizing prospect. He's like the Scottie Pippen of hockey in a sense. Like Scottie Pippen had his growth spurt in college, was barely recruited by colleges to play because he was only 6'2" or something. Then all of a sudden he was like 6'7" and had 6'2" skills in a 6'7" body and became a Hall of Famer and an all-time NBA great. And so I'm not saying that Beckett Seneca, that's going to happen for him, but an NHL team could hope that late growth spurt, having acquired the skills of a small man and then suddenly becoming a big man and still not fully grasping how to play as a big man and how to skate as a big man and how to be on balance, to maintain his balance and use his reach and all sorts of things, gives him a really high ceiling. So yeah, I think he's definitely a potential help for the Canadiens, and frankly, he might be a pick for the Canadiens for all we know. I mean, honestly, if they get to 5, I would not fall out of my chair if the Canadiens drafted Beckett Seneca at 5.
Mm-hmm. It would probably.
I'd be mildly surprised, but would not fall out of my chair.
I'd be more surprised if it was Iginla more than Seneca at 5.
Yeah, but even Iginla, like he's one of the youngest players in the draft. He's got an August birthday. He might be growing still.
Yeah.
You never know. I mean, there's and plus, obviously you've written about the bloodlines and how encouraging that can be, but he has really the board play, the hardness of his game, and the elite nature of his shot, and so yeah. But yeah, but there's a lot to like about all these guys, and there are legitimate question marks about all these guys, which is what makes it so fascinating.
Yeah.
We'll see.